Okay, so we are in the middle of learning a mimer called Bila Mavis Lanetzach, okay, which we started last week. We're going to be finishing today. It's a very short mimer. And what we spoke about last time was this idea, the title of the mimer, which is the first sentence of the mimer as well, is Bila Mavis Lanetzach, which is from a pasuk, Bila Mavis Lanetzach, Umacha Vaya Elekim Dima Me'al Kol Panim, which means basically Hashem is going to get rid of death forever, and he's going to wipe the tears from every face. And that's referring, obviously, to when Mashiach is going to come, right? So we took this last week, and we started exploring a little bit this idea of like, what is death, and where does it come from, and why is it even a thing, right? In order to understand why it will disappear and what exactly will make it disappear. And we spoke about the ideas like obviously death came from, we know the story with Adam, who ate from the forbidden fruit, right? And that's why, and from that moment on, death became a thing in the world, and it will remain a thing until Mashiach comes, eradicates it. Hashem gets rid of it, right? And we explained like what was the point of it, a little bit of the dynamics as to why death was the correct response to, the sin of what Adam had done. And we explained that Adam ate from the fruit. And what happened was that evil existed in the world, but it was very clearly delineated. There was good, there was bad, and they didn't mix, right? And the moment that Adam ate from the fruit, evil became part of existence. It became mixed with good. Good and evil are kind of like blended in everything that we see. Everything that we see has elements of good and elements of evil, and it's not always easy to differentiate between one and the other, right? And that's the reason why also we explained that after Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, Hashem said, you gotta get out of Gan Eden because we don't want you to eat from the tree of life and live forever, right? Why? Because now that evil is a part of your DNA, now that evil lives in you, if you were to live forever, evil will continue to live forever as well, and we can't have that, and therefore a person must die in order for the evil in that person to die as well, right? The good remains forever, but the evil dies with him, right? And we also explained that more than a punishment, right? It was also an outcome. It was a logical, direct outcome of what happened. Right now, we know that death is an expression of evil, right? Godliness is eternal. Anything that opposes godliness, which we call evil, is ephemeral, right? It doesn't last forever, right? And therefore, the moment that came into existence became ephemeral as well. It's no longer 100%. A person cannot no longer live forever because there is elements of that person that are not pure, they're not godly, and therefore they're not able to exist forever, and therefore a person must die. We explained also, right, that when Mashiach is going to come, right, there's going to be such a revelation of light, such a revelation of godliness that it won't even allow for the possibility, for the concept, for the notion of evil to even exist, right? And we said that the closest we've ever come to that in the history of the world, it was during the times of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, right? Where everybody was sort of nullified, subjugated to King Solomon. All the kings of the world, all the nations, everything was sort of what's called batal, nullified and subjugated to King Solomon, which was an expression of godliness, right? He was a holy king. He was a tzaddik, a righteous person. He built the Beit HaMikdash, right? And at that time, you see that everything, all the kings and queens, everybody was just, would come to King Solomon to get wisdom from him, and were just kind of like recognized, right, that he was the ruler, he was the king, and he kind of like ruled over them. And this happened because it was, again, such a revelation of godliness that everything, right, in the world was subjugated by godliness, right? The only thing is that we see in the times of King Solomon that it was sort of just a temporary thing, number one. Number two, while they were subjugated to godliness, right, all the other kings, all the other entities retained their sort of their greatness, their existence. They're still kings. They're still, they still had, the power, so to speak. But the thing is that they were subjugated to something greater than them, right? Which we know that when Mashiach is going to come, it's not going to be like that. Everything that's not godly will be completely 100% subjugated to godliness, and there will be no room for anything other than just godliness. And what does that mean? We're going to explain a little bit more. But that was kind of like what we learned last time. So we explain like this. Now that we understand, right, this differentiation between, the light of when Mashiach is going to come versus the light of when Shlomo Melech came, right? In other words, when Shlomo Melech was around, right, there was still room, right, for evil in the world. There was room for evil in the world, and the proof of that is after that time, evil just came back and never went anywhere. It was just kind of just put its head down. Whereas when Mashiach is going to come, there will be no room for evil at all. Evil will not even be a thing, right? And we want to now translate that to compare that to two different ways of serving God that the individual might have. Okay, now one of them doesn't really apply in its fullest sense, even though it does apply, as we're going to see, to every individual, right? And that is like this. There's a distinction between two types of people, okay? Right? I could say there's three types of people, right? There's a person that is attracted to evil, to do things that are not right, and goes ahead and does things that are not right, right? And then, there's a type of people that is attracted to evil, right? Is attracted to, you see a cheeseburger, you want to eat the cheeseburger, right? You want to, it looks delicious, you want to do it, right? But you don't, okay? So those two are really one category of person, basically the category of people that are attracted to, the physical, what we're calling in this case, evil, so to speak, right? It's a rough word, evil, because it kind of makes you think of just, I don't know, a Nazi. But, in this case, in this context, we're talking about evil just means something that opposes or seemingly contradicts godliness, right? Even though it's that something could be just an expression of something physical that just conceals godliness, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily a mustache twirling villain. It could be anybody else. It could be just physicality, right? So basically, category number one is a person that is attracted to physicality for physicality's sake. They just want to eat the cheeseburger. They want to go and do something that is not allowed. That is category number one. Category number two is a person that's completely repulsed, disgusted by the concept of something that goes against God, right? That is obviously a very rare thing. That's tzaddikim, very unique souls that come into this world, and they have their specific, it doesn't apply to most of us. Most of us are supposed to be attracted to it. We're supposed to conquer it, but we're supposed to be attracted to it. And that's what actually happens, right? But some unique people are just, they're not like that, right? They're tzaddikim, they're just live in a different world, so to speak. And they completely have no attraction, not just no attraction, but they're disgusted by anything that opposes godliness. There's a story, I forget who it was. It was a tzaddik, a big rabbi that lived in Europe. And apparently, the story goes that he was a very holy person. He was sitting and learning Torah all day. And people said that, he was not of this world. He was not attracted to things in this world. So this was the interesting story. There was this woman, right, who said, "There's no way." He's, she was a very beautiful woman, probably I'm not sure, probably a prostitute of some sort. And she was beautiful. Everybody was attracted to her. She was like, she prided herself in how well she could seduce men. And she said, "There's no way. I mean, I could kind of like catch his interest." So one day, she dressed up really pretty and went over to this rabbi who was sitting. He was learning, he was looking at his book, he was learning. And then this woman comes over dressed very seductive and, says something to him, to try to get his attention, right? And he looks up, and as he sees her, literally just throws up. That's the story. It's this interesting story just because, again, you'll have people that'll be like, "Oh, get away. That's not appropriate," whatever it is. But this person, his gut reaction, right, to seeing a beautiful, beautiful woman, right, was to literally throw up because what she represented, the way she was dressed, what she represented was opposing God. She was there to try to drag him away from God. And that, his body reacted with literally disgust, throwing up. And that's obviously somebody very unique. Most of us would not react that way. The way that it would be expected to react is perhaps look away, say, hey, listen, I'm not interested. Thank you so much. But we're not expected to have this discussed. So there's these two types of people. The people that are attracted to physicality, to this world, to, sort of, something that opposes God, perhaps that is attracted to us in one way or another, and the people that are completely not like that. Okay, so these two types of avodah, these two types of serving God resemble the two lights that we spoke of, right? There is the person that is attracted to God, even though, and perhaps the person completely controls himself and he only does good things. His behavior is perfect, even though inside him, he does have somewhat of a connection and attraction to something that opposes God, right? That resembles the light of King Shlomo's time, King Solomon's time, right? Where, perhaps, the behavior of the world all was towards godliness. Everything was in a way perfect, right? But inside, right, it's still allowed. There was still room for evil. There was still room for non-godliness, right? In a similar way to the person that is attracted to something that is non-godly, not godly, right? Will be attracted to it, even though your behavior might be completely perfect and you've controlled yourself to that extent that you're indistinguishable from a tzaddik from the outside. Inside, there's still room for it. And then there's the other side, right? With the light of Mashiach, when Mashiach is going to come, where we said that there's no room whatsoever. There's no room at all for a connection to something that opposes godliness. And that is similar to the person, right? The avodah of the person, the avodah means the service of God, right? Of the person that has no room whatsoever for anything that opposes godliness, and therefore they have no attraction, no interest at all. Okay? Okay. And we can explain a little further, right? That in reality, the level of attraction to something that's not godly, or its opposite, the level of disgust that you have towards something that is opposes godliness, is really a measure of the level of love you have for God. So really you can picture it as one spectrum, right? You have 100%, not 99, 100% love for godliness only. And then you can picture, I guess, the opposite spectrum, which definitely no Jew ever has, but you can picture that. The opposite is 100%, appreciation for something that opposes godliness, or in another way, 0% love for God, right? And then you have everything in between. The more love, the more appreciation of godliness you have, the more disgusted, or the further away you are for loving anything that opposes God. And the opposite is also true, right? So a person that we say is disgusted by evil would be the same thing as saying a person that loves God with all his being. When a person loves God with all 100%, all his being, his or her being, right? That only then will you have, complete disgust for something that opposes God, right? If a person loves God 99%, then that there's still that 1% that allows him to retain a connection, as little as it is, even 1%, right? But as little as it is, you still retain a connection to something other than God, and therefore there is room for appreciation, for desire, for things that are not godly, right? And that 1%, the thing with 1% is that if it's not like 0%, if there's no, if it just, as long as it exists there, it could grow, it could develop, or perhaps it could be, carried over to another, but it's there. There's room for it. Okay, so what we're saying is, depending on how much love a person has for God, depending on how much a connection a person has with God, right, that's how much he will hate something that opposes God. And just, words hate and disgust, all those things, we're not applying that ever to, people. I'm not saying like you ever see something, you should hate somebody. It's a big disclaimer. You should see somebody that's not behaving accordingly, you should hate them. It's more complicated than that, okay? But the idea is just conceptually, right? Love of God versus, which translates to also disgust or hatred of things that are not good and godly. Okay. Now, that being said, okay, we can say the following. So how does that apply to us, right? I don't know you, Ted, so much, but myself and pretty much everybody that I know have some appreciation for physicality and for some things that are not good. Now, I know a lot of people that are, model Jews, and they conquer their desires and they behave in a way that you say, wow. But even those people, I can't say that they're fully, they're just completely detached from anything physical or potentially evil, right? So most of us, it's fair to say that probably 99.9% of the Jewish world and the world in general, right, are in this sort of first category with appreciation towards potentially evil things. So how does this whole thing that we're talking about apply to us? And so the Rebbe says like this. We know the following. This is a question, right? Everything that's going to come in the times of Mashiach doesn't just poof come into being. Hashem doesn't just make a miracle and things just, Mashiach is going to be here and things are going to be the way that they are. I mean, Hashem is going to reveal what is there, but everything that's going to happen when Mashiach comes, we are building at this moment, right? We are creating that spiritually. We're creating that reality at every single day with every mitzvah that we do, with every action that we do, everything we do, we're creating Mashiach, right? Hashem, what he's going to do when Mashiach is going to come is perhaps tip the scale to reveal that so that the world will express it. Perhaps that could be a valid explanation of what he's going to do. But the idea is that whatever is coming when Mashiach comes is a direct result of what we are doing now. So if we're saying that when Mashiach is going to come, there's going to be this light that's going to eradicate evil on all levels, it means that somehow we are somehow doing that, somehow interacting with that level, with that approach, with that mindset, even this time. And that cannot apply only to 0.1% of the population, right? Because all of us are the ones that are here working hard. Like it's talking to me. So what the Rebbe says is the following: even though, in the fullest sense of the word, we cannot fully become these people that hate evil, because we're not supposed to. That's not our goal in life. That's not why Hashem created us. Hashem created us with an appreciation for evil for a reason, because there's something for us to accomplish, right? So that we're not supposed to become those people that hate evil in the fullest sense of the word. Nevertheless, there is room in our daily life for us to serve God in such a way that we hate evil a little bit. That work exists in our daily life. And how? So what the Rebbe says is like this. He says that when a person is serving Hashem, at some point in their day, let me just 1 second. Sorry, the door there. So it means, it means that at a certain point throughout our day, throughout our life, whether it is at the times that we're davening, whether it is at the times that we are learning Torah, maybe it's the times that we're doing a specific mitzvah that we really, really connect to, we need to try to, at least in one part of our day, to try to connect to this idea where at that moment, maybe when we're saying Shema, maybe when we are putting on tefillin, whatever it is, at that moment, we need to try to connect to God with everything. Everything means 100%, right?
That's good.
So that at that moment, nothing else, like seeming everything at that moment just seems completely foreign to us other than Hashem. And that needs to be a part of our life. So perhaps we can't live our lives 100% that way. We can't live our lives in a way that we're not attracted to everything that we see around us, but we can, right, focus all our might, right, and connect to Hashem in 100% way at a specific moment throughout our day, a specific moment throughout our life. And that approach, doing that, right, is what generates that Hashem reciprocates, right? He brings that, right, back and reveals it when Mashiach is going to come. So that idea of, evil completely disappearing, we bring it about by our tiny little, our tiny little connections to that, our tiny little work in that direction throughout our time in Galus, even though we're not at that level. Okay. Right, and this is also the reason, right? And we finish with this. This is also the reason why it says, this is also the reason why it says, sorry, too many interruptions today. This is also the reason why it says that when before the Tchias Amesim, before Hashem, the resurrection of the dead, right? Even the biggest tzaddikim, right, who also have in their body their physical being is still physical, and therefore has an element, as tiny as it might be, of evil, of physicality, of concealment of God, right? Even the biggest tzaddikim, who after they pass away, their bodies can remain intact in the ground for hundreds and thousands of years, right? Even them, before they resurrect, it says that their body will become dust, it'll decompose, and then it'll be reformed. Because within them, within their physicality, there still lies an element of evil, right? Which needs to, there's a reason why they came to this world too, to elevate that physicality, right? And through that, they're going to be reformed, and they'll come back to life. And one more thing is that this is all not just a side thing that happened, but rather, when Mashiach is going to come, you'll see that the physicality that we worked on throughout our time in exile, that we refined, that we elevated, right? Actually, what it accomplishes is that the physical body, right, that this body that needed to have the evil, and because of that had to fight evil and had to be elevated, right? That body will actually be higher, be holier than the soul. To the extent that when Mashiach is going to come, our soul and our body, the dynamics are going to be different. Right now, our soul gives to our body, and our body receives. When Mashiach is going to come, because our body was elevated to such a degree, right? Our body will attain a higher level, and the soul will actually be receiving from the body. And this is something to which is really groundbreaking, I think. So anyway, that's our mimer. We finished the mimer. You came today, Ted.
Oh, great! I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Rabbi Conrad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, awesome.
Yeah, so we'll continue next week. We'll start another mimer on the month of Elul.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you. May you have a blessed Shabbos.
You too.
Thank you.